I feel like people can be really quick to end a relationship based on short-term or fixable problems that they don't know how to work through, or they make an emotional decision that they later go on to regret. Or people can stay in relationships for longer than they should, and they don't realize when they need to end it. So that's why it's really important to think things through before you make any decision, or to identify and realize when you need to get out of a situation. And how we can do this is by asking ourselves questions when we're in relationships to determine, hey, is this a good fit for me? Do I feel like I need to end this relationship based on these questions? So that's what today's video is going to be on. But before we get into today's video, welcome. If you are new here, my name is Missy. I'm a life and relationship coach, and on this channel we get to the root of the issue and we learn how to heal and deal. So if that's your thing, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. I would love for you to be a part of the fam. And if you already are a subscriber, you already know I appreciate you so much. Alright, let's go into today's video. Oftentimes our decisions can be very much so based off of emotions, and they are emotionally driven, or we make decisions off of our urges. But when it comes to long-term decisions, we need that balance of being able to use our emotions to determine what we want and desire, but also using logic to determine what would be best for you and how reasonable or rational is this decision. You can't be one extreme or the other. If you are too emotional, then you will make irrational decisions that you will later on regret. And if you're too logical, then you will just live life strategically or bored, and you won't have a lot of your desires or wants. It will just be like you're living on computer mode. When it comes to our emotions, we can go through really hard times and then be like, okay, that's it, I throw in the towel, I'm out. And that's not always good, because when the going gets tough, then you'll always throw in the towel and you'll never really have a successful relationship. There obviously are some issues that you cannot work through, or you know, two people don't want to compromise, or it doesn't work out, and that's fine. But there's other times when there are things that could be worked through, and like I mentioned, you don't really have those tools, and it's just a matter of learning how to, you know, have a relationship and how to compromise. On the other hand, you also want to make sure that you're able to see a relationship for what it is and recognize when something's hurting you, or when you do need to throw in the towel because it's something that's not benefiting you any longer. It's not something that's moving forward. And you want to make sure you don't just try to stick it out based on a fantasy of what it could be, but rather what it is, what is reality. So that's where logic and emotion can be besties and help you determine when should you end a relationship or when should you stick it through. So when it comes to logic, relationships are very emotional. We're very emotionally invested. It's so easy to see someone else's relationship and be like, that's not good, they need to leave, or oh, that's dumb. You give really good advice when it comes to other people's relationships, but when you're in your own relationships, we are clouded by emotion and bias. So that's why it's so important for you to take yourself out of your relationship. Imagine like you're on a cloud and you're looking down at yourself, your relationship. Pretend you're your bestie, and you're seeing your bestie going through all these things, and determine, you know, logically ask yourself these questions. Like, how would you answer these questions for your friend? So let's start at the very beginning. How did your relationship start? So ask yourself, how did your relationship start? Did it start by them leaving someone else for you? Did it start by them cheating on someone with you? Because that's not a good way to start. That often means that that's going to happen to you at some point. They'll either leave you for someone else, or they most likely will cheat on you too. That's never a good way to start a relationship. Also determine who asked out who. That will tell you who takes the initiative in your relationships. Is there equal initiative in your relationships? Did it start off healthy? Were you chasing after them? Was it only them chasing after you? What was the beginning of your relationship like? The next question you want to ask yourself, how early on were there issues, and how did you resolve these issues? So the honeymoon phase usually is like 6 months, maybe a little over 6 months, maybe even to a year. But generally, you know, you're pretty forgiving of things. You are in a really good place. You're in, you know, your head's in the clouds. Everything's amazing, right? When was your first issue? If you had issues pretty early on, that's a bad sign. That means it already started off rocky. Why is it a time when you guys are, you know, supposed to be infatuated with each other and getting to know each other? Why are there such issues so early? And what were these issues? Were they issues about, you know, not being able to determine the relationship? What's about one of your heads turning? Were there other people involved in your relationship? Were they disrespectful towards you? Like, what were the beginning issues of your relationship? And how did you resolve these issues? Are these issues that did get resolved? Are these issues still something that happen current day? Did they change from these issues? Because here's the thing, when we go into a relationship, we can make really dumb mistakes, and then we can learn from them and do better. You know, it's about how do they make up for these mistakes, and also how extreme was the mistake. Some things are just really hard to get past, like cheating or disrespect. Every single problem has a different consequence. They're all not weighed the same. We'll get more into issues in a minute. But going back, you know, how did you resolve these issues in the very beginning? Or are these issues resolved? If not, that's a bad sign. The next one is, what are the biggest issues in your relationship? So going back to what I was saying a minute ago, so there's small issues like, you know, the family maybe is a little annoying, or maybe they chew with their mouth open, you know, small issues like that. And then there's bigger issues like they never listen to you and they don't care to hear you out, or they never care to spend time with you, or you feel like you're having to force a relationship, or they won't be intimate with you. You know, those are bigger issues, and you have to weigh them out. Can you deal with these small issues? Are you okay with them? And how severe are these bigger issues? Are they deal breakers? Are they unresolvable? And by unresolvable, meaning they don't care to work with you and try to work on them with you. They're standing strong in their viewpoint. Which goes into the next question, how do you disagree or argue? Do you guys eventually come to some sort of resolution? Do you guys compromise? Do you feel like you compromise more than them? Do they compromise more than you? How often do you fight? Do you bicker? Because bickering means that there's other issues that you're not resolving. So if you're fighting about small, stupid things that don't matter, that means that there's resentment, or there's bigger issues that you guys are tiptoeing or not really talking about. Do they deflect, or do you deflect? So like when you bring up an issue, do they turn it around on you, or do they try to bring up a different topic and they say, you know, why do we always have to fight about this? Why are you so serious? Do they belittle what you're saying? Do you belittle what they're saying? Do either of you always just walk away from the conversation and never come back? Because it's okay to need a minute to, you know, process and to calm down and re-regulate yourself. But do they walk away often and then not come back? Determine how you really disagree and argue. You know, do you have healthy arguments where you hear each other out? How bad do your arguments get? Do you feel disrespected? Do you guys take low blows? You know, figuring all of that out. Not being able to disagree in a healthy way is a big problem and is a valid reason to break up if you guys cannot healthily argue or come to some sort of resolution. The next question, which is a huge one, which I do not think that is talked about enough, is, do you accept your partner for who they are? And this is huge. Acceptance is something that I think a lot of us don't understand, but acceptance doesn't mean that you like something. It means that if this never changed, you would be okay. You would be able to handle it or tolerate it. So if your partner always stayed the way they are and they never changed, would you be okay? If not, if you do not like the person they are now and you're hopeful about who they will, or you're holding on to the fantasy of what could be, that is not good. That is not a good way to be in a relationship, because that's just holding off on fantasy and the potential of someone rather than who they are. Because there always is potential, but what is the likelihood? You know, they're gonna be who they are right now and who they're showing you they are. And so you have to believe who they're showing. And are you okay with this person? If you are not okay and you're holding on to them changing, That's not good. And vice versa. Do they accept you? Now, that doesn't mean that you don't hope for change and want to help, grow together. But it just means that even if it weren't to happen, you'd be okay. You wouldn't be devastated. You wouldn't be in a bad place. Now, the next question, which is holding ourselves accountable, which is, what kind of person are you in the relationship? And this is really important because it's not just about the other person. It's also about how we are in the relationship. Do they help us grow? It's so important to be with someone that you can grow with. We as humans, we crave growth. We crave being able to feel like we're moving up in life. And if they are not adding to your life, then they are taking away. If they are not helping you be who you are, if they are not helping you be a better person or encouraging you, then they are taking away from you. You also have to identify maybe any bad habits that you've formed. Maybe you've become really resentful and you can't get past it. Maybe they encourage you to do things that hurt you, like not going after a better career or not trying to up your skills in life, or they are controlling and they cause you to not want to go out and be with friends, and they maybe make you afraid of life and doing things or doing the wrong thing. Do you maybe become more controlling because they have cheated and made you feel insecure? Maybe do they say things that make you feel insecure? Do you maybe say negative things about them because you don't accept them and you're irritated by them? Are you your worst version when you're with them? Do they have a growth mindset or do they have a fixed mindset? I remember I had this one client where she very much so had a growth mindset. She was like, let's try to do things together, let's work out, let's try to improve our lives. And he was like, no, I just kind of want to stand still and just chill. And that was never going to work because she wanted to move on and better her life, and he wanted no part of it. Having those two mindsets will cause resentment and will cause both to feel frustrated and like their needs are not being met. And one will most likely become more controlling than the other. And so you have to identify these things. Have you become more bitter? Have you become more controlling, like I said? Do you feel like you've become worse or better from being with this person? And if you have become worse, 100% get out and start to work on some of these things. Maybe you need to work on your resentment, work on your insecurities, work on things so that way this pattern doesn't repeat in your future relationships. But if you notice that you don't feel like you're becoming better, that is a huge sign that it's not good for you. And the next question is, are you settling? And this one can be really hard. And this one you especially have to look at it from an objective point of view and see, okay, do I feel fulfilled? Do I long for something else when I'm with them? Do I feel like something's missing? Am I just in this relationship because I'm afraid to be alone? These are tough questions to ask yourself. Do you not want to leave because you rationalize it by thinking, oh, they're a nice person? Do you think that you don't have a good enough reason to leave because things aren't the worst of the worst? You're not in an abusive relationship. So here's the thing. Even if someone you're dating is amazing, they could be so nice, they could be so amazing, if you're not feeling it, if passion is missing, if the desire to be with them is missing, there's nothing wrong with that. You're not a bad person. You don't have to be with someone just because they're nice or just because they provide for you. You could love them, but maybe there's attraction that is missing, which you cannot be with someone you're not attracted to. That does not work. Maybe your senses of humor are off, and sense of humor is so important to you. If me and someone else's sense of humors are off, it's a no-go. I cannot do it. That's my number one thing I need. I wouldn't say my number one, but it's the top 3 that I need in a relationship. If you're not laughing at my jokes and I'm not laughing at yours, it's a wrap. You can absolutely leave a nice person. You don't have to be with them just because they're nice. That is not a good enough reason. And it's also really unhealthy to stick and stay by a relationship because you are afraid of being alone. Especially if you're in an unhealthy relationship, if you're in an abusive relationship, which that's a whole other topic. But if you're afraid to be alone or you're afraid to be without them, that is a huge sign that you definitely need to leave, because staying in a relationship out of fear is terrible. That sucks. That strips your life away by living in that fear. You are not living in authenticity, and when you don't live in authenticity, often depression creeps in because you're suppressing yourself and who you are and what you actually need and desire. So those are all the logical questions you want to ask yourself. Like I said, looking from an outside perspective and really thinking, you know, what would I say to a friend? Now there's the emotional side, which is, are you happy? Now happiness, there's ups and downs. You're not always going to be consistently happy, but are there more happy moments than negative sad moments? If you notice you're crying a lot, or there's more negative moments, or you're scared, or it's just negative and bad and it's toxic, that's not good. It's not only about the high highs and the happy times, it's how often is this happening. If your relationship's like this, get off the roller coaster. If your relationship is like, you know, this and then a little bit down like that, like that's more normal, you know. And so you want to look more for that, for more consistency, more normalcy, rather than the, you don't want to be looking like an EKG. The next one, do you think about breaking up with them or fantasizing about others often? Do you think about, you know, what could be with someone else? And do you fantasize about how someone else can meet your needs? Or do you notice, like, when you feel ignored and they're not attending to you, or like you try to talk to them and they don't hear you out, you're thinking about leaving? If you do that often and a lot, and you have tried to talk to them, it's not a matter of, like, you have to make sure that you do bring up issues, which is another thing you have to ask yourself. Do you bring up issues that are bothering you? If you haven't talked about these things, then, you know, you haven't really tried in your relationship. You should always bring things up in your relationship first, see if they're resolvable, and then if you don't come to some sort of compromise or you guys are butting heads, then you consider leaving the relationship. But if you're often thinking about breaking up and you keep rationalizing it by being like, oh, they're nice, or oh, you know, I'm comfortable, or I'm scared, or, you know, I don't have a good enough reason, then that's not healthy. You can break up with someone because you don't feel satisfied in the relationship. And here's the thing, it's normal to have periods of time, or maybe you have like a little bit of a crush on somebody, like at the gym or something, or, you know, it's normal to think about others. But if you're doing it a lot and often, then you know that, you know, that's not good. The next one, do you feel that you're being treated the way that you want to be treated? This is a very subjective question. For instance, let's say every Friday they bring you your favorite thing from McDonald's. You know, that's an identifier for you that your needs are being met, you're satisfied, that makes you so happy, they're being thoughtful. For me, that would be mistreatment, because I don't eat McDonald's and I feel like they were trying to kill me. And you have to be realistic about your needs and how you do want to be treated, because not all of us get to live in the land of the riches. You can't expect someone to take you on vacations every month. Like, that's unrealistic. What is it, like the top 10% can do things like that? Yeah, we're all normal over here. If you're watching this video, you most likely are not in the top 10%, or maybe you are, I don't know. But we're all pretty much middle, you know, or lower, and you have to be realistic about how you want to be treated. Obviously, the bare minimum is they're kind to you, they're nice to you, they are trusting. Those are all the bare minimum. But things above that, like, do they make an effort to make you feel special? Do they hear you and listen to you? Like, do they know you love strawberries and they bring you strawberries? Do they know that you love hugs and so they go out of their way to give you a hug? Do they know that you need quality time and so they make sure to spend time with you? Do they show care and that they're investing in the relationship? That's how you know that you're being treated well. It doesn't have to be these grandiose gestures. And if you're expecting that, then you're going to be really disappointed. Sorry, I'm gonna be the jerk to say that. Now, like I had mentioned before, are these things that you have brought up, like, you know, any of these issues that you brought up, have they been discussed, and have they been things that you both can't agree on or you can't compromise or work through? Do you both not try to put your differences to the side and really try to invest in the relationship? If not, if one is carrying the relationship more than the other, then it's definitely time to reconsider the relationship. If you haven't brought up any issues and you've just been keeping these inside, then you're being unfair, and you really need to bring these things up before you even consider leaving the relationship. Unless it feels dangerous and you're scared, then get out of the relationship right away. But if they're a rational human being, then 100% yes. The next question is, are you satisfied intimately, like, and that doesn't just mean sex, that means you know, when it comes to physical, your physical needs met, it comes to connecting with one another. You know, do you feel like that's being met? Because if not, then it's just like on a friend level. There's no intimacy or passion in a relationship, then you're just friends. Y'all roommates, you're friends. So if there's not really a lot of intimacy, or you know, you feel like the passion's lacking, then that is a very valid reason to not want to continue the relationship, especially if you've brought it up and they don't care to do anything about it. And then the last question is so important: can you see a future with them? This obviously is a question for people that are a little bit older, maybe in their older 20s or in their 30s or 40s or what have you. Obviously, when you're in your young 20s, you don't have to really think that much about your future. Go date, go explore yourself, whatever. This is more people who are looking to settle down. Can you see a future with them? If you cannot see a future with them and you're looking for a long-term partner, doesn't matter, you know, if you're not looking for a long-term partner, then this question does not matter. But if you are looking for a long-term partner and you cannot see a future with them, or you get an uncomfortable feeling when you think about the future, something doesn't feel right, that's your intuition kicking in. You have to listen to that. So going through all those questions can help you really see reality and determine if you should continue this relationship with them. You know, are these things that can be worked on? How severe are these issues? Are these things that you can look past and be okay with? That's what will really help you determine. So last, imagine breaking up. Just imagine the two of you break up, you're packing your stuff, just imagine all of it. Obviously, your emotions that are gonna come up are maybe sad, maybe you're scared what's to come. That's all normal. But behind that, do you feel any type of relief? Or do you feel a sensation that feels right to do this? Even though I'm like sad and it sucks, does it feel right? If it does, then that's your intuition kicking in to tell you, hey, it's time to get out. If you feel absolutely devastated and like you don't want to not be without this person, and these are workable issues, then go ahead and work on them. And maybe there are a lot of issues on your end that you realize that you need to work on, and it's not just your partner. So that's why it's so good to ask yourself both these questions. If these are unresolvable issues and you still feel devastated, no, that is not good. That may be a trauma bond. So if you really have to determine how workable these issues are, and it's on a scale. So what do you guys think? Leave it all in the comments below, and please don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share with someone that you think may need it. Until next time, thanks for watching. Bye guys. Ah! The spider was on my foot. Oh, I forgot I did my nails 2 minutes ago. I feel like people I feel no, I don't want to say that. That's bad.